And welcome to Hard Hat Guitar. Today we are going to be using a slide and the volume knob of our guitar to create some really cool swells. We're going to go over the technique on how to do that real quick, and then we're going to use some recorded background music to use it in practice with chord tones in theory. This is not a slide lesson per se. You do need some slide experience in order to do some of these things. And I am using a Telecaster for this. Certain guitars, this really won't work just based on how far away the volume knob is from the strings and your ability to move it with your finger. It works with a Telecaster. I'm left-handed, so I don't get to play a lot of different guitars. I just know I have this and I have a Les Paul, and when I try to do it on my Les Paul, I can't. So the Tele it is. So the technique itself is pretty straightforward. I have the volume on my guitar all the way down. You can hear it a little bit just because we're in my little studio. And I'm going to hit the note in advance and then slowly use my pinky to bring the volume of my guitar up. So like so. So I think it's important when you're doing this is to have something going on with your amp or pedal that gives you some sort of sustain on your guitar, whether it be a high volume or a little bit of crunch. I think it just sounds better if you have a really quiet, clean sound going that really doesn't work. So I'm going to try it again, and this time I'm going to start with one note and slide down. So I'm going to start with an A on my B string and then slide down to a G, like so. That's kind of a cool thing to do, a little trick. And you can slide chords. That's an A minor. I'm playing the 5th fret of my high E, B, and G. So basically, you can... The trick is to anticipate where you want it to end up in the song, because you're not playing with the beat. You're not picking the note you want to hear with the song. You're thinking about it in advance so that when your volume swells up, it's meeting the song where you planned on meeting it. So a couple of things before we get to some examples. First of all, when I was doing it just now, you could hear me pick the string before I started lifting the volume up. If you're playing a gig somewhere, that's not going to happen. And if you can hear yourself hit the string before you start putting the volume up, you might have a problem with attendance at your gig, which is an issue. Or maybe everyone is so riveted in what you guys are doing that they're being very quiet and focused. But either way, you're not going to hear that. So it's actually the cool part of the trick is that it is going to sound like it's swelling out of nowhere. So it doesn't really have a true beginning as opposed to a picking sound. The picking sound is going to go away. So that's the cool part of that. And also, you may be asking, isn't there a pedal for that? Well, there is. There are volume pedals that kind of act like wah-wah pedals, where you kind of step on it like a wah and it brings the volume up, and it can start from, 0 volume. I find that using it with my volume knob, I have more control over how quickly I want that to happen. And also, it kind of keeps me honest. If you have a volume pedal, you can really get carried away with it. Whereas this is a little more work, so you really only want to do this if you're playing in a gig, like a 2-hour set, and you do this, more than 2 or 3 times, it's going to get really old really fast. Like, it's a cool little trick if you do it once in a great while. It gets a cool kind of like almost violin-y or pedal steel sound. But if you do it a lot, it gets kind of gimmicky. So do you really need a pedal for something you're going to do, once or twice, or do you want to clean up your pedal board? And also, if you're doing this with your hand and it's a little more work, then you have to be a little more thoughtful about the notes you're choosing and when you do it. And I think it just makes what you're playing come out a little more authentic and a little more honest. But that's just my opinion. I don't think there's any wrong or right in music. And if you think a pedal is a cool thing to have and you like a loaded up pedal board, then have at it, be you. Okay, so now that we've gone over how to do the basic technique, we're gonna try some of this in practice. So what I've done is I've recorded a simple background check of just C and G back and forth, C and G, G and C add 9. And basically I'm just gonna slide the chord tones over it so you can get the basic gist of it. So my chord tones for my G are G, B, and D. And for my C, I have C, E, and G, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not even gonna worry about the add 9 on the C for now. So we can see how basically the technique and the chords go together. So as you can see, there's a lot of fun to be had with that. I did some different chord tones. And another thing I like to do with this technique is maybe start with a note of the scale and resolve to a chord tone. So over my G, I started with an A and went down to my G. So I went from, I guess, the 9th to the root or the 2nd to the root. So it creates this tension, and then that tension resolves itself. So there's all sorts of fun to be had, and it's actually also a cool way to practice your scales and your theory and your chord tones. So, it's a win-win. Okay, so we're going to do one more example, and this time I'm going to slide on some chords. Basically my chord progression is G, D, A minor. It's basically Knock on Heaven's Door. So I'm going to do a couple different, I'm going to slide on the major for the G, but what I want to do is I'm only going to pick 2 notes. So I'm going to play the 12th fret of my D string and my B string, which would be the 5th and the 3rd of a G chord. So I'm not even going to play a G on the G chord. And then I'm going to slide on my A minor chord with an A, an E, and a C on my 5th fret, my 3 high strings. Then I'm going to try it again next time, but I'm going to start with the 7th fret and resolve to it, which is kind of a cool trick as well. So let's try that out and see what happens, and could be a train wreck. We'll find out. So there's a lot of different examples you could do with this. We could go on all night with this. It's a lot of fun. But I hope you get the basic idea of it. The thing I like about it is you can use it in a lot of different places. It's versatile. You could use it for cool country songs. You could use it in really moody, like Mazzy Star sounding stuff. Really, I find it works better with like slower type things, but you might find differently. Mess around with it and have fun with it. I would caution again, just be careful, don't overuse it. The less you use it, the hipper it's going to sound. And so thanks for checking out Hard Hat Guitar, and we'll see you at the next one. Thank you.